stars, I will be there.
I'm Monica Charette, and this is Holding the Light.
As long as you love, I will whisper in your ear. Little whispers you will hear. As long as you love.
Today's episode is part 2 of our interview with Pattie Gallant. Last month, we got a personal glimpse into Pattie's grief journey that actually began 9 years before her son Evan died of cancer. Anticipatory grief. 9 years since his passing, she is now reflecting on how grief changes, what her son's death has taught her about living, and what peace looks like to her today. Colby and I are grateful to be back this month to hold the light with Pattie Gallant.
When I got home, we waited until about 6 o'clock in the morning to wake Lily up. And as soon as I sat on her bed, I hadn't been home in 2 weeks. I had been at Gosnell with him. As soon as she looked up and saw me, she started crying. And she pulled the covers over her head, and she knew that meant he was gone. And it wasn't, she didn't grieve, honestly, for 2 years.
That was Pattie, a bereaved mother sharing the moment she told her then 10-year-old daughter Lily that her brother Evan had died. In our last episode, Pattie relives the heartache of Evan's cancer diagnosis, his treatments, and the end-of-life lessons he taught her. If you haven't yet, I encourage you to listen to part 1 on anticipatory grief. Sadly, we know how this ends, but how we live our lives after child loss, and one day even find purpose and meaning, is how the story continues. We're glad you're here. Our conversation expanded to how everyone, including parents, grieve differently.
Evan's dad and I grieve very differently too. And I will say that after Evan died, the most painful thing in my life was the break in my relationship with his dad, because we've always been close. We were married very young. We were divorced when Evan was 4. He was the rock. He was he would be online doing research. I'd be calling the doctors. We were a great team. We've often said we could run a business together and be very successful. Evan, he knew we were both there for him. We were both partnering. But after he died, his dad, his name is Tony, the anger came out. With anger or resentment, you often take that out toward the person that you're closest to. So he knew I would have given my life for Evan. He knew I did everything possible to heal him and to get him healthy. He did as well, but he was angry. And I exacerbated that. I didn't know it intentionally, but I kept sending him notes from people, copies of texts. I'd send him pictures. And one day he just blew up at me. He said, "Stop sending me these things. I'm just done." So I'm grieving, like my grief is talking about him and looking at memories and telling funny stories and listening to his friends talk about him. And he wanted nothing to do with that. So our relationship was fractured for a little while. Evan died in June. It wasn't until October that we hadn't spoken, and nothing really happened, but he was just angry. So it was October. We were married on 10/9/87, so it was October 9th, and we came to the same intersection. And I know we have felt Evan. I have felt him so many times very early on. And we came to the same intersection. It was a holiday. It was a Monday. I was taking Lily to a friend's house, and nobody else was around. And we were sort of coming this way toward each other, and he waved and I waved, and then we just kind of drove. And on the radio, I heard October 9th. And I said, "Oh my gosh, this would have been our 30th wedding anniversary. If that's not a sign, I don't know what it is." So I called him, hoping he'd pick up. And I said, "Do you know what today is?" He's like, "No." I said, "It's October 9th. I said, "We would have been married 30 years today." And he stopped. And I said, "Can you imagine if we hadn't gotten married? We never would have had Evan in our lives." And he said, "You're absolutely right. I'm sorry." And that's all we had. That's all that had to be said. He knew he was, he wasn't taking it out of me. He was dealing with his own grief, but he knew it was like we were at a disconnect. And from that point forward, it's been great. But that was, that to understand, to realize that he wasn't grieving like I was grieving too, I was confused about, but I wasn't angry, but I was confused and I was shocked by it. And but I had, I think, the wherewithal to say, okay, it's not me. This is where he's at now. He sends me things all the time. So it took a couple of years before he was really comfortable, like celebrating the past instead of tucking it away.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for all men because I certainly wouldn't put myself necessarily in the category of reaching for anger. I mean, it happens. I think that happens with every person, but
Yeah.
I definitely, there's like a quote, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it's something to the extent of like, to all the things that exist outside of my knowledge, do so without my consent. Like this idea that I can't control. It's a terrifying feeling, and for some people that can be very angering. And that's just, one of those stages of grief that, we can flip between all of them, but that's definitely a very real one.
I think you're beyond your years. I think you're there.
Let's talk about the stages of grief now. And do you think they applied to you as you went through this? I mean, maybe I should go through them because they were developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. The stages of grief, of course, are denial, which helps us survive the loss. When the world is just meaningless, we know what that felt like right in the beginning. For us, it was very sudden. So denial was at the forefront, I think, when Cassidy died. And then there's anger, as you just described. Your ex-husband is going through those feelings of anger. Underneath all the pain is the anger. I guess it gives kind of structure to your grief sometimes for some people. And then bargaining, right? What if I only, all the things that we did. I'm sure I felt that, in that night, and I'm sure you did for years. What if we'd done this sooner, or noticed something sooner, had different treatment? And then there's depression. I think everyone feels that at some point. That's when grief solidly settles in. You know what that's like when it really arrives, which is, of course, not a sign of a mental illness. That's very different because you're not really being okay, but you have to accept the reality that your child's not coming home. I think that's really hard for a lot of people, of course. So those were the 5 stages, but then David Kessler, who's like the renowned expert on grief, I'm actually taking a class with him right now and enjoying it so much, but he wrote a book called Finding Meaning, and that was the 6th stage of grief. And I think you and I could talk a lot about finding meaning. But the stages, as you know, are not linear. They're very cyclical. They happen together. Some stages you don't experience at all. Did you follow the stages of grief, do you think? Did you think about them at all?
I bounced around, I think, honestly, Monica. I will say denial came in cycles. Denial always happened. So I didn't experience denial after he died. I experienced the denial before he died. Once he died, like I said, when he did die, it was a sense of relief. I was not in denial at all for him because I just prayed that he would let go. And he did when he was ready, not when I was ready. It was his timing. But I never had anger. I never experienced anger, and it is an interesting conversation I had with one of the home nurses, hospice nurses who was coming to our house. Lovely lady. Evan loved her. She came and did Reiki with him, and she did some imagery work and just massage. And she pulled me aside in the kitchen one day, and she said, it's okay to tell Evan that to admit that you're angry with God. And I felt no anger. And I said, I'm not sure what you mean. She goes, well, it's okay for him to know you're angry. I said, I'm not angry. And I'm not angry with God. If it weren't for God, I wouldn't have had 21 years with this young man. I said, I'm so grateful for this. When somebody asked me one time if you could forego all the pain and suffering for 9 years and then obviously beyond, because people forget that after death comes more pain. That would you trade it? And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Those years with that young man were were amazing, and he taught me so much. But I did say to her, I'm not angry with God because God gave me this gift. And Evan's not angry with God either, but I understand how you could be. Like, I had the benefit of time, and that's where some of my guilt comes from too. When I chat with other moms who lost their kids suddenly, and we talked about that, like, I can't wrap my head around that time was such a gift. I can't wrap my head around what that must be like, even though I lost, the end result is that we've both lost our children. That sudden loss is just unimaginable to me. And so I do have a fair amount of guilt. When I was pulling pictures to send you, I sent one of Evan and I with his cap and gown on, and I felt guilty because I know Cassidy never graduated. I did have some guilt, and I know that it's just hard. And then I think, bargaining, I did a lot of, again, most of this is all before he died. I did a lot of bargaining about, and have some anger, and was bargaining with the medical field because I think his pediatrician, should have done what I asked her to do sooner and didn't. Would it have made a difference? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Depression, I think, it feels like depression for me has been, not clinically depressed, as you mentioned, but has just been ongoing. Like, it has been a part of my life since the minute he was diagnosed, and it hasn't changed, but I manage it and I live through it, and I can sometimes, find joy. And that's kind of that challenge that we all have as living human beings who have family and friends and a life. Like, how do I balance the joy with the sadness? And I think of the depression more as the end result was sadness, just pure sadness.
Yeah, I feel like depression is like this background song that's on all the time. It just never leaves you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And things trigger that,
absolutely.
right? So something triggered it for me yesterday. That was weird. It was just out of nowhere. But it happens. And instead of fighting that, I've learned to just sit with it and think about, okay, Pattie, what's going on? Why are you feeling this way? Why do you feel anxious or angry or agitated? Like, what's happening? And then, okay, I think it's because of this. And it could be something subtle and simple that tomorrow wouldn't bother me at all.
I think that's such good advice, because I think someone once said to me, and now I repeat it to everyone else who talks to me, you don't really have an answer for them about how long am I going to feel this, or why am I feeling this way? I guess the question is, get curious about that. Like you said, sit with that for a little while and try to understand within yourself, why am I feeling this way?
I learned to do a better job of that with Lily. Like, if I was short with her about something, like if I had a reaction that was short, she's such a sweet person. Like, she wouldn't say a mean thing, but she's very well-rounded in terms of her thought process and her emotions. And I have learned to stop if I get short, or something is like, if she doesn't do something the way I think that she should, she's almost 20 years old, she doesn't have to. I will say, you know what? You do it your way. I have a different opinion. And I can say, this is coming from a different place, and I'm sorry. And she gets that. Because I'm not literally comparing her to Evan, but like you said, Colby, well, it wasn't like Cass did it, right? I think we do. And I don't, even if Evan were alive, I think I would do the same thing, because we're moms, and I don't love my children any differently, and they're both amazing. But like, I never say, well, Evan would have never done that, but I think it, right? I think, sometimes, and it not in a detrimental way, but just they're very different. And I compare them sometimes, not comparing, which child is better or not, but just comparing how different their personalities are. And I often think, I wonder how she will be when she's, his age. Well, now she's approaching the age that he was when he died. And those thoughts really trigger different things as well. Like, she will turn 22. I will never have been a parent of a 22-year-old until she turns 22. Or I don't have any more pictures. I keep looking at the same pictures of Evan over and over again. Because that's all I have, right? And I think about that with her, like, what will it feel like? We talked about that for her, her birthday coming up in July, and she will have been without Ev as long as she was with him.
Colby talks about that a lot.
Yeah.
How do you process?
Well, I think one of the interesting things too that Mom and I talk about is how, like, Cassidy lived 17 years, but I only think I got maybe 9 or 10 of them in my memory, because you're so young and you're still formulating them. And I'm hitting these milestones in my life, and the grief continues. Like, I feel all those things that you guys feel, seeing these other milestones happen to the friends and family in your life and wishing it could be you, but now it's like I'm experiencing it. And there is like a level of almost like expectation that I put on myself, which probably isn't fair a lot of times, but it's like, yeah, I have to do this. Like, this is one, something I want to do, but also like I'm carrying Cassidy with me. And, you know, I have to honor her and do the things that she would have done if she was here. And yeah, it brings about just new levels of grief. You know, I'm facing another graduation in just a month now, and I think about that a lot. Like how much I wish she could be here, and how much I wish that she had this opportunity herself. And yeah, it's one of those things that is just so human. I don't know that I'll ever escape it, but I agree with both of you that I just cherish those 9 or 10 years.
Acceptance to me has been a part of the entire process, pre Evan dying and post, that I didn't have a choice. And that's how I feel it is. Like I can either crawl into a corner and sit in the fetal position, or I can just accept this as my new life. And quite frankly, and not to put any additional pressure on you either, Colby, I don't know if this is similar, but if it weren't for Lily, I probably wouldn't be able to say that. Right. I don't know. I mean, I've never thought of, I've never thought of like my own demise, and never felt that depressed, clinically depressed. But the will to live is clearly because of my daughter. There's, to continue to live and to be a good person and to have joy and love has been because of Lily. And she, I was told I wasn't. Evan started as he's a test tube baby. He was an in vitro baby. We 4 years of infertility, and he finally came to be. So his life has been unique from the beginning. But I was told I couldn't have any more children at all. And then enter Lily. I found out at 40 I was having another baby. I knew she was a gift. I knew there was a purpose for her. I didn't know at the time. And again, not purpose for keeping me motivated to, be a good parent, but like her place on this earth was very deliberate. Her place in my life was very deliberate. And she's added so much joy and so much love to, to my life and to her dad's life and to Evan's life. But I don't know what it would have been like had I not had her. And I don't say that, to add pressure to her, put that weight on her shoulders, like I am not her responsibility. But because she was in my life, I truly think that it helped me get to that acceptance.
And I don't want to speak, for Lily at all, but Mom has expressed very similar things to me, and it doesn't put any additional pressure on me. That's just my own personal space right now. Yeah. I don't know where Lily's at, but I think that is just, again, mirroring very similar things that Mom and I have discussed. And while there is a little bit of pressure, it's no more than any other, child would be facing at this stage of their life anyways. And, I'm just ecstatic to have that my parents are still motivated to wake up every day and contribute to their community and be present with their friends and with me. And if I'm something that helps that, then all the better. I love them and want to see them happy.
When you started this fountain, you started the Shine on Cass Foundation, I wasn't ready. I had people coming to me all the time saying, we should do a wiffle ball championship every year, because he would love that. We should do, or things with a baseball team or a scholarship. And I just wasn't ready for it. I couldn't put my heart into it. It wasn't time. But I do feel like, some ongoing legacy that maybe Lily can take over too is probably a good idea at some point. But I don't know if there's the right time. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how you decided.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, our situations were a little bit different. I think that we just so wanted to honor who Cassidy was. She was such a long-time devoted volunteer and so connected to so many different people in many different ways that we didn't want her light to go out. We were feeling like this can't end here. Her life will continue, but we have to do it through us and our actions. And I think that's what motivated me, is I just wanted to keep her with me.
You didn't start it right away, right? You waited.
Yeah, it was interesting what happened, because I really stopped working and stopped functioning for a period of time, as Colby can attest to. like, I think the first person that suggested that we do something kind of brought me away from that darkness for a moment. And I thought, this will give me purpose. She died on Columbus Day weekend in October, and it was April the next year that we did the big Bowl for Cassidy's Sake, a fundraiser for Big Brothers Big Sisters, which she was very engaged with.
Nice.
And that's when I first started coming out and seeing people. And I've said I've started seeing in color. I truly felt my whole life was black and white until that moment, when I saw other people around me who loved her and wanted to honor her and remember her in all the ways that I wanted to too, but just couldn't find a way to do it.
Right. So you gave them that gift also.
That's what I was going to mention. I also think too that while yes, I don't want to diminish, my parents and the incredible work that they do. It was just part of who Cassidy was that so many other people stepped up and wanted this as well. And it was really a community that came together and said, we're going to continue her legacy of service and continue to shine her light. My mom and my dad just stepped up and made a vessel for that. But it was already in the works. I mean, even just days after her passing, people were raising money for what would have been our family. And we immediately said, no. Like, this is going to go for something bigger because Cassidy would have wanted that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it was just a natural extension of her.
Let's talk about some of the very unique and meaningful ways you have found to turn your grief into purpose.
I'm still working on that. I actually am writing a book. I'm probably about halfway through. I've been encouraged by so many people. Again, we all loved Evan and love Evan, and the stories that I share, the only reason I like Facebook, social media, is because of the memories. Some that he posted, and I will go through memories like once a week and just look at, repost things. And I get so much feedback from people saying, we love his stories because they're so unique, and they just show his level of maturity, but also his emotional intelligence. And that's what I'm most proud of with both of my kids. And I can tell Colby, you're the same. It's like that your emotional intelligence to me is so much more important than anything else. And they both are kind, loving, respectful humans. And in the way he handled everything in his life, before he was 12, but from the point of being diagnosed until literally laying in hospice is notable, I think. I've kind of entitled it Painting Beauty with His Ashes, because I really believe that is truly what I'm going to be able to share with other people, is all the beauty that came out of his life. It was a short life. It was only 21 years. And I would give anything for it to be more, but that wasn't, that was beyond what I could do. But I can share how amazing he was in those 21 years. And if I could just be a fraction of who he was in my full life, I'll be really happy. So that's one of the things that I'm still working on. And I honestly had to ask myself the question the other night, like, why haven't I finished it? I've had time. And I think the conclusion I came to is like, I'm afraid to finish it because then the chapter will be closed. Because then there'll be no more memories, right? Once I share all these memories, these anecdotes, and these, things, there will be no more. And I kind of, because I still, like, I'm sure, like you do with Cass's friends, I get texts from people or Facebook messages, even now, 9 years later, saying something, or I had a dream. This is what happened in my dream. Evan did this, and sometimes people that don't know me, but they knew Evan. And the word is out, like, you should tell Pattie, she'll be really happy to hear that. And I think some people are fearful to bring it up because they think that they're rehashing. I would love to hear stories from people. It'll never get old, ever. And it does evoke emotion, but it doesn't mean it's always negative emotion. The sadness is there too, but boy, I feel joy when I hear those stories.
That just happened to me this morning. I was at the gym and I didn't want to go, and I had to drag myself there. And why am I here? And this woman approached me who I haven't seen in a while, and her daughter went to grade school with Cassidy. And she told me this beautiful story about seeing a sunrise and how much she thought about Cassidy. And she said, I don't think she wanted to send it to you because she's probably, she's inundated. And I said, please tell her that the answer is always yes. Yes. Please share it every moment you have that you think of her.
Yes. Isn't that nice? I love that.
Fills
I
you up.
did like right the year after Evan died. I asked all of his friends to write down their favorite, some email me their favorite story.
Great
And I
idea.
printed them and I folded them on paper and I put them in his Christmas stocking. So they stay in his Christmas stocking. We hang the stocking. So every Christmas we'll pull them out. Well, when Lily was 10, not all of them were appropriate to share. So I picked and chose which ones. And then, so now there are some, I mean, they're not terribly off color, but they're pretty funny. I shared other ones and I will still, I send a note out every Christmas saying, hey, anybody want to share a new story? But, the challenge is like, they've all moved on with their lives. And I say that in the most loving way, like they're all getting engaged and, having babies and getting engaged, getting married, having babies, getting their first houses, their first apartments. And it's amazing and wonderful, but it's hard. So they're not thinking about him like I am on a daily basis, and nor should they, right? So we went to his girlfriend's wedding this summer. Yeah, yeah, his best friend, and they were not romantically together when he died, but they were together for several years and then broke up, and they both started dating different people. But I said that's a relationship, that's a friendship you will never ever have again. She's your best friend. You guys need to make sure that you recognize that. And so they stayed best friends, and she was by his side the whole time. And of course, invited us to the wedding. I went. I wasn't going to miss it. His dad couldn't do it. And I get that too.
Well, I give you props for that, because I didn't go to any weddings for many years. Many, many years. I still struggle, actually. So
yeah, I understand.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever shared this on our podcast, and I don't mind doing it now. But one of Cassidy's friends, when she got married, not long after Cassidy had died, she was a little bit older than she was, wanted to carry a piece of Cassidy with her at her wedding. I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. Cassidy's favorite color was blue. She made jewelry for all of her friends growing up. So I found a blue bead, and I had it made into a pearl bracelet. And I gave it to her to wear on her wedding day. And she was thrilled with it, loved it, had it photographed. And then when it was over, she said, we can't keep this to ourselves. So every one of Cassidy's friends should wear this at their wedding. And so now she created this beautiful book where she writes a letter to the next bride and talks about what Cassidy meant to her. And please wear this with pride, or wrap it in your bouquet of flowers. And so now I have this beautiful memory book, and all of her friends are lining up. Like, they remember this happened for somebody else and they want to wear it.
They can't get married the same day.
Right. That bracelet, though, is traveling all over the country. All over the country. I have to keep up with them. Yeah, it's quite beautiful.
So much. I love that.
So there's just so many ways, that we try to keep them present. Pattie, what would you say grief has taught you? Like, what surprised you the most about grief?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I don't.
It's okay.
It's taught me a lot, but I don't know what I think is most important. Okay, I do know what's most important. This came as soon as those words left my mouth. Grief has taught me, most importantly, that not everybody belongs in my life, and it is okay to choose certain people in your life and to have other people not be in your life. And I gave myself permission to do that, and that was the biggest gift I could have ever given myself, because I'm a pleaser and I wanted everybody to be happy and I didn't want anybody to be mad at me. But it got to the point where I had so little emotional energy left. Grief took that from me. So I didn't have the means to manage the other BS that I was getting from people. And it was actually freeing. It forced me to realize that I didn't have to fix everybody and they didn't have to be there for everybody.
Every grieving person listening to this is nodding and nodding and understanding exactly what you're saying. So thank you for expressing that. Would you say you're at peace today, Pattie?
Absolutely, I am. I am at peace. I miss him and think of him every day. That will never change. Sometimes the tears are just tears of pure joy and laughter. Sometimes I'm just sad. I allow the tears and the feelings to coexist with the joy. And I know we've all talked about that, but I am at peace, very much so. I know that when I die, I will see him. And we often asked ourselves, some people asked why. Evan had never asked why him. I never asked why him, but I know that I don't think it's going to matter. When we see each other again, I don't think any of this is going to matter. I don't wake up every morning now thinking about him. I did that for several years, but this is healthier for me personally. I do think about him every day. Something happens, I think about him, but it's not like the first thing I think of in the morning anymore. So I feel like I've kind of, made a little bit of progress as much as I'm going to make. It's never going to be, life will never be the same again.
Of course. Do you feel his presence?
Absolutely. All the time. Often, I should say, not all the time, but often I do. Really poignant, quirky little things that happen. I do feel him here, but I feel him a lot. I feel him when I make bad decisions. Because he had wisdom that was beyond his years, and sometimes I would just throw things across about him and say, "What do you think about this relative to some family stuff?" And he said, "I wouldn't go there, Mom. Just keep it to yourself." So I don't have that board to bounce things off from anymore. So it's but I do. His presence is very, with other people too. It's very, very pronounced.
I think the one thing that people don't understand about grief, at least with parents, is that the relationship continues. It doesn't actually end.
It doesn't. That's absolutely true. And I never thought of it like that. It does not end.
Never ends.
And I don't feel like it's because we're clinging on to something. I think it's just that their spirit is still here. I don't feel like it's like it's not imagination. It's truly, they're here.
I feel like my relationship with Cassidy has grown, it's changed. It gets bigger.
Yeah.
As life goes
on. Do you feel her also, Colby?
Yeah, actually, there's a quote from a lady that we just love to talk about, but her idea when she was about to pass away, she was talking to her son, and she talked about do you feel that pain? Like, do you feel like how it physically affects you? It's like, that is me inside of you. And so when I grieve or I feel joy or any of these emotions, I'm like, that is Cassidy, that her legacy that she imparted upon me and all those wonderful memories, that is her literally inside of me. Like when I cry, when I feel that pain or that immense amount of celebration to see so many people come together to honor her, that all those feelings are her inside of my body. And I just, I feel her every day.
It seems strange to some people that I feel happy and joyful about that, but I do. I just think some people have a hard time if they haven't experienced this. They just, I don't know. I'm sure some people think I'm crazy. That's okay.
You have to have a little crazy.
It'll do it to you, right? Yeah.
Evan was so many incredible things in his short lifetime. What do you think is Evan's legacy, and how do you want the world to remember your son, Pattie?
There's a hashtag that his friends started years ago. It's hashtag Live Like Ev. His legacy will be that we need to help each other. We need to be there for each other. There's no place for hatred. There's just not. Our differences are what make us special. And I saw him behave that way with so many people. He took the time to talk to people. He took the time to hear their stories. What he would want as his legacy is for everybody he knows to know God. Our friend who's a pastor in Florida, Mark, came up to do the service. Evan loved Mark, and he talked to Evan in private for several hours before he died. And then Mark said, I have my marching orders. I know what the message is. And I didn't ask. It was between them. But when he preached to Evan's celebration of life, it was very clear Evan wanted people to know Jesus. He understood that it was important to him, and that's what he would want people to think about when they think of him.
This has been such an incredible conversation. I mean, it's, as we said, Evan's life is just too big to have in one episode. So, Pattie, I just want to thank you so much for sharing Evan with us and for your honesty and your courage and your willingness to speak to the parts of grief that so many feel but they struggle to name. I feel like Evan's life and your love for him continues to shine in such meaningful ways. Thank you so, so much for being with us.
Thank you both for having me. You guys are wonderful.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this podcast helpful, please share our link with others and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Monica Charette, reminding you that you are never alone in your grief. Until next time, we'll be right here with you, holding the light.
As long as you love, as long as you